Imagine this. You're walking slowly through a quiet lavender garden just after sunset. The sky is painted in soft purples and dusky blues. The air is cool and still, carrying the delicate scent of blooming lavender, calming, gentle, like a whisper to your nervous system. Each step feels lighter, each breath a little deeper, and with every exhale, the weight of your day begins to melt away. Here, in this moment, there's no rush, no noise, no pressure to think, do, or fix. Only the soft hum of nature and a quiet space made just for you to unwind. This is Bedtime Whisper, a place where peaceful stories and soothing sounds gently cradle your mind, helping you drift into deep, healing rest. If you often find it hard to fall asleep, if your thoughts keep spinning long after the lights are off, let this be your sanctuary. So, take a deep breath, let your shoulders drop, and give yourself permission to rest. You're safe here. You're not alone. Sleep is not a task. It's a return to stillness, softness, and home. Hey guys, tonight we begin a slow, winding journey through Lisbon's hills on a tram older than your great-aunt's recipe book and just as full of stories. The soft hum of electric lines whispers above your head. The cobblestones shimmer with a memory of sun, though the sky now drapes in velvet blue. Salt air from the Tagus River brushes your cheek as you stand at Praça do Comércio, that massive square where grand ideas and small pigeons coexist. The ground under your shoes is centuries old, and somewhere nearby, a custard tart is still warm. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like sharing, let me know your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where our little sleep train is stopping by tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step onto Tram 28 like you've done this 1,000 times. Though your sneakers still fumble on the lip of the step, the wood inside groans a little, either from age or just sheer dramatic flair, and the doors shut with a clank that's both final and theatrical. There's a red velvet seat waiting for you, worn just enough to cradle your shape without judgment. It smells faintly of citrus peel, old varnish, and someone's lingering perfume. Outside, the world is all golden blur. As the tram lurches forward, you catch a last glimpse of the grand arch that frames Praça do Comércio. Once upon a time, kings walked through it. These days, it's more pigeons and phone-wielding tourists. But the energy remains. This square was once the heart of Portuguese power. Until, of course, the great Lisbon earthquake of 1755 came along and reminded everyone that empires are just sandcastles waiting for a tide. The tram rattles along Rua da Conceição, gently uphill. You pass tiled facades where the blue and white azulejos seem to watch you with ancient, unreadable eyes. Lisbon's famous ceramic tiles tell stories, saints and ships, flowers and fables. Some of the tiles have chipped away, like teeth lost to time, but even in their imperfection, they're impossibly beautiful. Historians still argue whether the Moorish influence or the Baroque obsession made them so central to Portuguese identity, but your eyelids just think they're calming. You glance down and spot a brass plaque embedded in the sidewalk, part of the city's subtle reminders of its history. This one marks the spot where Dom Carlos the Sambre was assassinated in 1908. a gentle reminder that not all slow rides through history end in pastries and poetry. There is a clang from the front as the driver taps the bell, a single note that rings out like a lazy chime. An older couple across from you chuckles softly, their fingers interlaced. He's wearing a fishing cap that's seen more summers than you, and she's got a shopping bag full of something wrapped in butcher paper. You imagine it's sardines, because that's what Lisbon does best. Serve you oily, salty love, wrapped in nostalgia and newspaper. As you trundle forward, the tram crosses a slight dip, barely enough to feel, but just enough to shift the rhythm under your body. It's a lullaby in rail form. The wooden ceiling creaks in time with the wheels, and you find your head tilting back slightly, as if gravity is giving you permission to drift. Outside, a busker stands in front of a bakery that's probably been there since flour was invented. He strums a guitarra portuguesa and sings a fado tune that hits somewhere deep. Fado isn't happy music. It's longing in musical form, like missing someone you've never met. They say it was born from sailors' sorrow and lovers' regret, and listening to it now, you get the feeling that whoever first sang it must have done so under this exact twilight sky. You turn your head slightly to catch the view. The tram begins its curve, ever so gently, toward the Alfama district. The river glows behind rooftops, like an old friend holding a lantern. You feel the weight of Lisbon's breath on your skin, a mix of history, humidity, and heaven. As the tram continues, your limbs begin to surrender to the motion. There's no rush. This isn't a bullet train. It's a poem that forgot how to rhyme, but still makes perfect sense. Oh, and fun fact, beneath this very street, archaeologists once found Roman fish sauce vats. That's right, fish sauce. Apparently, Lisbon has always smelled faintly of salt and surprise. Historians still argue whether the ancient trade routes that passed through here helped spread culture, or just very pungent condiments. Your eyes begin to soften, focus gently dissolving as the tram hums toward the hills. It's only the beginning, but already the quiet magic of Lisbon is curling around your senses like a blanket woven from time and light. You're standing at a small, uneven platform in Alfama, the city's oldest quarter. The tram door creaks open with the kind of sound you only hear in vintage films or haunted libraries. You step down gingerly. Those cobblestones have been here longer than electricity, and they're not particularly shy about showing it. It's quieter here. The din of central Lisbon fades behind you like a dream dissolving at daybreak. A soft breeze nudges your sleeve. You glance up and see clotheslines crisscrossing above, tiny flags of daily life, pajamas, tea towels, maybe someone's lucky socks, fluttering between centuries-old buildings in a kind of slow-motion parade. The tram lingers behind you, its golden interior glowing like a memory you haven't made yet. You take a few steps down the narrow lane, guided more by instinct than plan. Alfama doesn't do maps. It does intuition, shadows, and the scent of something sizzling in garlic. To your left, a cracked wall blooms with wild vines and rogue azulejos, some chipped, some barely clinging, like the city itself. A cat regards you coolly from a windowsill above, its tail flicking in time with the slow beat of a fado guitar echoing down from an unseen balcony. You'll hear that word a lot. Fado, Lisbon's soul in musical form. They say it means fate, but what it really means is saudade, that beautiful, gut-punching word for longing without resolution. As you wander deeper, the streets begin to shift in pitch, not metaphorically, physically. Alfama is built like an argument between gravity and imagination. You climb a stair carved out of rock. You duck under an arch that might have been a bakery 600 years ago. Historians still argue whether this district evolved from Roman ruins, Moorish blueprints, or just someone tripping downhill with a stack of bricks and an ambitious spirit. You pause beside a wrought iron gate that's been swallowed by ivy. On the other side, you spot a mural, faded but defiant, of a woman with a guitar and eyes that have seen too many sunsets. It's Amalia Rodriguez, the Queen of Fado. Her face watches over this neighborhood like a street lamp for souls. Another step, and you're in front of a tiny cafe with 3 tables, 2 chairs per table, and one elderly man who may or may not have ever left that spot. He raises a glass of something opaque in your direction. Cheers, or maybe just acknowledgement that you exist now in his Lisbon. On the menu chalked beside him is bacalhau à bras, a codfish scramble that looks like confusion but tastes like your grandmother's hug. You don't eat it. You imagine it, the warmth curling behind your ribs, and there's that clatter again. The tram, still waiting around the bend, maybe for you, maybe for someone who never boarded. As you begin to walk back toward it, a plaque catches your eye, bolted into the side of a building now serving as a florist. It tells of a poet, one most people haven't heard of, who once lived in that very spot. She wrote about lost love, cracked tiles, and the sadness of oranges. You don't know what that means, but you know exactly what it means. The platform feels different now, worn smooth by your brief detour through someone else's past. You step back onto the tram as the doors wheeze shut once again. The engine hums like a lullaby, and the motion returns. Slow, clunky, forgiving. As you ride uphill, the lamps cast honeyed halos onto the cobblestones. Someone behind you murmurs something in Portuguese, and while you don't understand it, you know the feeling, like the city is exhaling through its stories. You press your forehead gently to the glass and let it cool your thoughts. Oh, and in case you were wondering, there is a local legend that the spirits of sailors lost at sea return to Alfama as street cats. That one sitting on the railing back there? Yeah. He winked. The tram rattles along Rua da Conceição, gently uphill. The incline is so slight you almost wouldn't notice, if not for the soft tug at your spine and the way your feet press just a little firmer into the wooden floorboards. Outside the window, Lisbon glows in amber and slate. It's the hour when the streets glisten faintly with leftover sun, and shop windows reflect more dreams than products. Rua da Conceição is not the city's most famous avenue, but it's one of its most honest. Here, you get a little bit of everything. Tiled facades in every stage of decay, wrought iron balconies with flower pots clinging on like stubborn optimists, and cafes that look like they serve both coffee and confessions. You pass a blue-tiled building that seems to shimmer like scales, an ancient fish caught mid-transformation. The tiles are called azulejos, and they've been here since the 1500s, brought over by the Moors, then reborn under the Portuguese, like tiny mosaics of memory. Historians still argue whether the word azulejo came from the Arabic az-zulaj, meaning polished stone, or whether it's just a poetic coincidence. Either way, the walls seem to breathe. Your tram shares the road with nothing else for a moment. No cars, no scooters, just the click-clack of steel on steel and the occasional murmur of a passing conversation, too soft to catch, too lovely to ignore. Above you, the tram wires stitch a crooked line through the sky, like Lisbon trying to sew itself into the stars. You glance up and notice a plaque on a building wall, Rua da Conceição, 87. It was here, a small sign claims, that the city's first public telephone was installed in 1882. No smartphone screens, no apps, just a rotary dial and patience. Imagine the whispered secrets carried through that copper line. Love declared, news delivered, bread ordered, possibly incorrectly. The Wood tram makes a slight curve, and your view tilts with it. To your right, a woman leans from her window 3 floors up. She tosses something, a piece of crust maybe, and moments later, a pigeon lands precisely where it should. They've done this dance before. You swear the bird bows. You press your forehead lightly against the cool glass. It's slightly fogged, so the city blurs like a watercolor painting, left out in the rain. Inside the tram, someone behind you coughs softly, and a child giggles. Across the aisle, a couple whispers to each other in French. The man wears a scarf that says Paris, but his shoes are very much Lisbon, scuffed, soulful, and shaped by hills. The tram slows near a little square where a busker plays something halfway between a lullaby and a protest song. His open guitar case holds a few coins, a daisy, and a crumpled napkin that may or may not contain profound poetry. You never find out. Just before the tram resumes its pace, you spot a mural, giant, stretching up 4 stories. It shows a girl releasing paper boats into the air, as if they might float past the rooftops and out into the Atlantic. Below it, someone has scrawled, in tiny trembling letters, "Hope doesn't sink if you fold it right." That's Rua da Conceição for you. Half history, half hallucination. The place where tile and time cohabitate, where ghosts of revolutionaries probably meet up with baristas and debate espresso strength. Oh, and here's a fun one. Underneath this very street, sealed off and silent, is said to be one of Lisbon's lost aqueduct routes. Some claim it still hums with water. Others believe it hums with voices. Historians still argue whether the subterranean system was a feat of engineering genius or just a leaky accident that looked great on maps. As the tram climbs a bit higher, your eyelids lower, just a fraction. Your shoulders drop. The city's rhythm is now your rhythm, deliberate, thoughtful, unhurried. You ride forward through a corridor of amber light and gentle shadow, like Lisbon is pulling a blanket up around your thoughts. And somewhere behind you, that mural girl is still releasing her paper boats, each one catching a breeze, each one gently gliding upward. The tram creaks around another tight corner, and with a soft jolt, you begin your slow ascent into Graça, a neighborhood suspended between Revolution and Laundry Day. The hill is steeper here. You can feel it in your knees and in the way the tram grumbles, like a stubborn old man resisting a brisk walk. Outside, the buildings grow bolder. Graffiti kisses every flat surface, walls, doors, even utility boxes, with revolutionary slogans and swooping electric art. Some are masterpieces, Others are messages in a hurry. One says Viva Abril, a nod to the Carnation Revolution of 1974, when a dictatorship fell to the sound of radio anthems and the scent of flowers. Historians still argue whether it was a coup or a miracle. Lisbon doesn't bother arguing. It remembers. Up above, on every available balcony, laundry hangs with no shame. Socks, bed sheets, intimate things, all flapping like they've got nothing to hide. There's something brave about that. The whole hill smells faintly of detergent, grilled sardines, and eucalyptus. You breathe it in and feel slightly cleaner somehow. To your left, you spot a man playing chess with himself on a stoop, muttering strategy to no one in particular. His bishop is winning. To your right, there's a dog lying in a doorway, wearing a kerchief and the air of a retired philosopher. He eyes your tram like he's seen thousands. He probably has. Graça is known for its views, its poets, its revolutionary heart. There's a church at the top, but you're not there yet. For now, you rattle past crumbling staircases and rose-colored doors with peeling paint and names etched in brass, some polished, some forgotten. You imagine each door opens to a story, maybe to a family who makes too much noise at dinner, maybe to someone who still writes letters on paper, maybe to no one anymore. A poster flaps loosely on a pole, a Fado concert next Thursday. The singer's name is Marta Luz. You've never heard of her, but somehow you believe she could sing the sky to sleep. The poster is held up by tape and hope. The tram shudders slightly as it climbs. You lean gently into the turn, and your eyes catch the rising roofs of the Alfama below, sliding backward like a film in reverse. A woman with silver hair waters her plants from a third-floor window. She waves at the tram like it's a friend arriving late. You wave back before you even think to question it. Suddenly, a mural blinks into view, half tucked behind a vine-covered facade. It's simple, just a red carnation, freshly painted. During the Carnation Revolution, soldiers put those very flowers in the barrels of their rifles. No shots were fired, just flowers, cheers, and freedom walking through the streets. Historians still argue whether that day was choreographed or spontaneous. Either way, it was kind. You pass a cafe with 4 men arguing over football and politics, which in Lisbon are often the same thing. One slams his fist down, more passionate than angry. Their coffee cups tremble in agreement. And there, between 2 buildings like an afterthought, you see it, a hidden stairwell lined with tiles. Not the glossy azulejos this time. These are rough, hand-painted, each one different. Some bear poems, some just names. One reads, "My mother taught me how to hold silence like a prayer." You want to take a photo. You don't. You let it stay where it belongs, tucked in the hill. A soft voice crackles through the tram speaker. The driver announces something you don't quite catch, but the tone is familiar. Routine, comforting, like a bedtime story told for the 100th time. The tram slows for a moment to let a boy with a backpack hop on. He's maybe 12. He says, "Obrigado," with a smile that makes the tram brighter. You look out again, and there's another mural, freshly done. This one of a woman standing on a roof, her hands open to the sky. Behind her, birds scatter like blown dandelions. And below it, scrawled in sharp ink, "Nothing belongs to gravity if you love it enough." You press your hand lightly to the window, not knowing why. Maybe to steady yourself, maybe to greet the city, Maybe just because your fingers want to remember the cool glass, the old light, and the way Lisbon rises without rushing. The tram groans again, climbing. Your body sways in rhythm, and your breath slows with it. Somewhere nearby, a radio plays something tinny and nostalgic. Maybe Amalia, maybe Marta Luz, maybe just the city humming to itself. The tram groans with a little more effort now as it begins the final stretch toward one of Lisbon's most iconic peaks. You're not in Graça anymore. You're climbing toward Nossa Senhora do Monte, the highest viewpoint in the city. Your body sways with the tilt of the tracks. It feels like climbing a gentle wave that never quite crashes. The street narrows. Cobblestones glisten in the street lamp glow, each one slick with the whisper of sea air and old stories. You pass a row of modest houses pressed shoulder to shoulder, like sleepy villagers leaning in for gossip. The tram slows. It's not a stop, exactly, just a pause, as if the city itself needs to catch its breath. To your left, the outline of the Igreja da Nossa Senhora do Monte reases through the dusk. It's not a grand church. It's not gilded or immense, but it stands proud on its perch, guarding centuries of prayers and graffiti with equal tolerance. They say women used to climb this hill barefoot, whispering requests to the Virgin Mary. Historians still argue whether it was penance, faith, or simply habit that guided their steps. The tram halts for real now, just long enough for a few passengers to step off. You don't move. Not yet. The bench beneath you cradles your spine. The world outside feels holy, not in a religious sense, but in that tender, breathless way. Sacred things wrap themselves around silence. A breeze slips in through the slightly ajar window. It smells like sage and faint incense. Someone nearby is burning something ancient. Your gaze lifts as the church's bell tower flickers in the golden haze. No chime tonight, but it's felt, not heard. And there, just below the lookout wall, a small shrine clings to the hillside. It's carved directly into the rock, an alcove no larger than a closet, holding faded candles, plastic flowers, and handwritten prayers on scraps of paper. One reads, "Bring my boy home safe." Another, "Let her love me again." And another, in broken Portuguese, "Peace, please, just a little." You wonder how long those prayers have sat there. How many came true? How many are still floating, untethered, waiting for the right wind? Then, without warning, you're moving again. The tram shudders forward, climbing higher. You pass an overlook where tourists are clustered with phones raised, chasing the sunset. The sky is a spill of wine and lavender, and the city below glows like an ember refusing to die out. You're rising above it now, all of it, the tiled rooftops, the curling alleys, the stubborn cat colonies, the grand plazas and hidden gardens. From this angle, Lisbon is a patchwork quilt of rebellion and quiet joy. You feel the city's pulse not in your ears, but in your ribs. A little farther up, a stone bench hugs the curve of the hill. An old man sits with his back to the tram, watching the skyline fade into mist. He lifts a thermos, takes a sip, and doesn't move again. You think he might be part of the bench. You think he might be part of the city. And just as the tram begins its gentle arc toward the downward slope, you catch a glimpse of a mural only for a second. It's tucked behind a hedge and half lit by a broken lamp. It shows an angel handing a tram ticket to a small child. The wings are enormous. The child is smiling. Beneath it, barely visible. Everyone rides home eventually. Historians still argue whether Nossa Senhora was a military post or a purely spiritual one. But you, here now, know it's a portal, a breathing space between city and sky. You feel it as the tram hums downward, a soft release, like unclenching something you didn't realize you were holding. And just before the bend, you spot a white dove flutter from the bell tower, circle once, then vanish into the purple dusk. No one on the tram speaks. They don't have to. The view does the talking. The silence does the rest. The tram begins its slow descent, as if it, too, is reluctant to leave the quiet heights of Nossa Senhora do Monte. You lean slightly with the turn, the angle of the city softening around you. The rooftops spread out like overlapping waves, terracotta, gray, and sun-kissed from earlier light, now fading into deep blue. The street here is lined with iron railings and curved stone walls, shaped over time by hands, weather, and an architectural stubbornness that Lisbon wears proudly. The tram glides down a narrow path beside homes with wide shutters and flower boxes, petunias, geraniums, a few wild things that refuse to be tamed. You see a small balcony where someone has draped fairy lights along the railing, even though it's long past any holiday. They blink lazily, like stars too full to shine properly. To your left, small chapel flickers with candles. There's no service tonight, just a woman inside, kneeling with eyes closed, mouthing words to someone unseen. You don't need to hear them. You feel them, low in your chest, like a drum softened by distance. And then, there it is, the Miradouro da Senhora do Monte. You glimpse it through the tram window, a wide open ledge of Lisbon, where the city unfolds like a secret whispered into your palm. You spot silhouettes, lovers, tourists, a man with a sketchpad scattered across the low wall. Some stand, some sit, none speak. The view has taken their words. The tram doesn't stop here, not officially, but it slows just enough for you to see the dome of the National Pantheon rise in the distance, glowing under scattered clouds. And beyond that, the black ribbon of the Tagus River, its surface catching what's left of the sky's light. If you squint, it looks like Lisbon is floating. You feel a strange sensation then, not joy exactly, not sadness, something quieter, like being on the edge of understanding something enormous, a presence, a peace. As you descend farther, you pass an abandoned building covered in ivy. Its windows are gone, but inside, candlelight flickers. Someone's there, or was. You see a table, a vase, 2 chairs. Everything looks arranged for company that never arrived. And on the outside wall, someone painted an enormous pair of eyes, blue, weeping, watching. Historians still argue whether this part of the city was once a lookout for soldiers or shepherds. You think it was both, guardians of something, or maybe just lonely men with better views than most. The tram groans again as it rounds another bend. A boy runs beside it for a few steps, laughing. then darts off into an alley. The driver chuckles softly and taps the bell once. Ding, like an inside joke. The street understands. You ride past a closed bakery where a neon sign hums the word po. Bread. Simple. Familiar. The kind of comfort you can hold. You imagine the smell still clinging to the air inside. Warm crust. Flour-dusted shelves. A woman counting change while her husband sweeps the floor. It's all here. Still, even if unseen. The tram eases into a flatter stretch. You're leaving the summit now. Below you, the city starts to stack itself again. Tighter, taller, louder. But the hill still lingers in your blood. You can feel its silence between heartbeats. A mural appears, as if out of nowhere. A child drawn in golden chalk, asleep on a crescent moon. Beneath her, even the city dreams sometimes. You wonder who painted it. When? Why? And you smile, because some things are better without answers. The tram picks up just a little speed. Lisbon begins to rise around you again, closer, brighter, more awake. But part of you stays at the top, where the sky leaned in, and the wind smelled like stories. You exhale through your nose, slow, the kind of breath that settles the bones. And just before the next curve, the church bell finally rings. Once, clear and round. Not urgent. Just a note to say, yes, we were here. The tram slides deeper into the folds of the city, and you feel it. Lisbon is changing again. The steep hills of Graça fade behind you, replaced by the layered tapestry of São Vicente, a neighborhood stitched together with marble steps, whispered prayers, and the smell of grilled sardines that clings to your memory like perfume on old linen. To your right now, São Vicente de Fora looms pale and ghostly. Its twin bell towers rise above the rooftops like patient guardians. You can't help but stare. The monastery isn't just a church, it's a story, or rather, a library of them. It's said that within those walls lie secrets, skeletons, and somewhere, possibly, a stolen parrot. Yes, a parrot. The 17th century patriarch who once lived here reportedly owned one who could recite entire psalms in Latin. When the bird vanished, rumors sparked. Divine punishment, a prank gone wrong, or maybe the clever bird just flew off in search of more receptive audiences. Historians still argue whether the parrot was real, but Lisbon believes it. The tram hums alongside the monastery's outer walls. You pass rows of whitewashed stone, pitted and polished by time, like the face of someone who's lived well and deeply. Every surface tells you something if you're willing to listen. The paint peels in layers, like forgotten promises. The carved angels above the archways are missing fingers, wings, entire faces, but they remain. A group of teens walks past the gate, speaking rapid-fire Portuguese and laughing like time doesn't touch them. One kicks a bottle cap down the street, like it's a game with cosmic consequences. You want to freeze this moment, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. The tram bell rings twice. Ding, ding. A woman boards with a basket wrapped in cloth, and the warm scent of fresh bread invades the air. She nods politely, tucks herself into the nearest seat, and begins to knit. Slowly, rhythmically. You watch her fingers move with the certainty of someone who's done this for lifetimes. The tracks narrow slightly here, brushing against old garden walls. You spot bursts of bougainvillea pushing defiantly through cracked stone. A white cat lounges in a sunbeam that somehow still lingers. Nearby, a plaque notes that São Vicente de Fora holds the tombs of Portuguese royalty. Quietly, underground, history sleeps beneath this very street. The tram curves gently past a small courtyard where two men play cards beneath a fig tree. A third watches, sipping wine from a water glass. One of them raises his hand to the tram, not in greeting, not in farewell, just acknowledgement. You exist. We see you. And then the air shifts. Small cafe, wedged into the corner like an afterthought, glows gold against the blue-gray dusk. You glimpse its sign, O Refugio. And inside, a single table, two steaming bowls of caldo verde, and a radio playing a song you don't know, but feel like you've heard in a dream. The singer's voice is raspy, gentle, like velvet fraying at the edges. As you lean forward to catch more, the tram jolts. You pass the facade of another building, etched with dozens of tiles, each one different, some glossy and painted, others chipped and faded. It's a gallery of time. You see saints, flowers, ships, birds, and, wait, a rooster on a bicycle. Why not? And then you hear it, just barely, a soft voice singing. It's coming from a window above, a child maybe, or someone old and tender, enough not to care if they sing off-key. It's beautiful, not in pitch, but in purity. You don't need to understand the words. The melody brushes past your ears like warm wind. Historians still argue whether São Vicente's crypt once connected to hidden tunnels beneath Alfama. Some say priests escaped through them. Others say treasure was buried there. But some say the tunnels were emotional, not physical, pathways of grief, where those left behind whispered their losses into the stone. You believe all of them. As the tram continues, a mural flashes past. A king and a monk playing chess, watched by a wolf in a crown. No context, no explanation, just a spray of color against the stone. You blink, and it's gone. The driver whistles softly. The city answers with a dog's bark. Somewhere, a bell rings. You feel like you're inside a giant breathing body. Each street a rib, each window an eye, and then, just before the next bend, you see something scribbled in chalk on a step. Even stone remembers. You don't write it down. You don't take a photo. You just remember, because maybe the stone does too. The tram drifts into Muraria, and the city shifts again. You don't notice it at first. The buildings change shape. The tiles grow more intricate. The sounds become sharper. Chatter, clinks of cutlery, a burst of accordion. It's not louder, just more alive, like the city's heartbeat has quickened beneath your seat. You're in Lisbon's oldest melting pot now, where Moorish foundations still hold up cafes that serve Chinese dumplings beside Portuguese bifanas. Muraria doesn't just exist, it hums, and the tram knows it. It rolls slower, respectfully, like it's entering a sacred kitchen where history simmers in many languages. You look up and spot a plaque. Aqui nasceu o fado. Fado was born here, not in a palace, but in the alleyways where hearts cracked open and someone sang about it. You try to imagine it. The first voice, broken and beautiful, drifting up a stone stairwell on a night like this. The tram glides past a courtyard where two women sit outside their doorsteps, shelling peas into enamel bowls. They speak in soft Portuguese, the kind that takes its time. A toddler toddles between them, wielding a wooden spoon like a scepter. He taps it on the tram rail just as you pass, and it rings like a benediction. To your left, a mural stretches up 3 floors. It shows a woman in a crimson shawl, head tilted back, eyes closed, mouth open in silent song. The kind of mural that stops you, the kind that doesn't need your camera to live forever. Beneath her, in shaky script, even grief can dance. You round a corner where the walls lean in, barely giving the tram room to pass. It does, barely. You lean forward instinctively, like your body knows the rails better than your brain does. As you ease past, you glimpse an open window. A man sits inside at a piano, fingers dancing like candle flames. He's not playing for anyone, not exactly, but the music trickles out into the alley, like he hoped someone might be listening. And you are. Then, the tram emerges into a small square. Strings of paper lanterns loop overhead, fluttering gently in the night breeze. A table of old men clinks glasses. They don't laugh so much as sigh deeply in unison. You want to join them, just to sit, to belong. At the edge of the square, a woman sells chestnuts from a small cart. The steam curls into the air like it's writing a love letter to the stars. You catch the scent, nutty, sweet, just a little burnt. It makes your stomach ache, but in a nice way, like nostalgia for a meal you never ate. The tram halts for a beat. A man boards, his coat too big, his eyes red-rimmed, and a dog, scruffy, smiling, loyal, trots in behind him. They sit together. The driver doesn't blink. You guess the dog rides free. Oh, and here's a gem. Beneath these very tracks, someone claims there's a forgotten wine cellar from the 1300s, sealed off during the plague and left untouched ever since. Historians still argue whether it was real or just a good excuse for bad wine. You turn your head and see a staircase leading up a wall, going nowhere. Literally, it ends in stone. Someone has painted a door at the top. In chalk, someone else added, for those who dream in reverse. You don't know what it means. You don't need to. The tram lurches forward again. On your left now, laundry swings from windows like flags of survival, socks, scarves, children's pajamas, a red dress that sways with unnatural grace. You watch it longer than necessary. You pass a group of teenagers huddled around a boombox. They're dancing, badly, joyfully. A boy spins, slips, laughs so loud the street answers with a car alarm that sputters, then dies. He bows. No one claps. But you do, in your mind, and then you see it, almost hidden on a stucco wall. A faint mural of a tram, your tram, climbing upward into a sky filled not with stars, but words, all of them Portuguese, all of them love letters. One reads, "I forgave you here." Another, "She said yes here." And your favorite, at the very top, "You are welcome to stay, even if only in your heart. You don't know if you're dreaming anymore, but the tram is real. The tracks are real. The breath in your chest is real. And Lisbon, this nighttime maze of sorrow and celebration has unfolded a little more for you as the tram turns one last time. A street lamp flickers, catches, and holds steady. You lean back and let the wheels carry you forward through Muraria, through music, through memory. The tram slows again as you near Martim Moniz, a square named after a man who, depending on whom you ask, either saved the kingdom or just had really unfortunate timing. Legend says he threw his body into the closing gates of the castle during the siege of Lisbon in 1147, allowing Christian forces to enter. Historians still argue whether it was bravery, accident, or a medieval version of hold the door. The square has changed since then. Now it's a crossroads of cultures, of languages, of smells so layered you can't tell if that's turmeric or fried fish or both. There's a food stall lined with dragon fruit and durians. A child chases bubbles that float from a vendor's wand like bits of magic no one's charging for. To your right, a large bronze statue stands under a sycamore. It's meant to depict Martim Moniz, sword raised, eyes set to the castle in the distance, but someone has tucked a crocheted scarf around its neck. Lisbon has a way of making the past a little softer. The tram squeals into a slower roll. A young couple boards. She's wearing headphones. He's holding a takeout bag. They sit without speaking, but their knees touch. The kind of silence that feels full. The square buzzes. Teenagers gather near. The fountains. Phones out, swapping playlists. A man with a chessboard waves at strangers. You watch a piece move, then disappear into someone's pocket. Maybe it's a strategy. Maybe it's just life. You lean toward the window and glimpse a tiled wall covered in poems, not written by famous poets, just anyone. One reads, "My mother still lives here, even though she's gone." Another, "This street taught me how to forgive." A third, "Nothing ends until it's remembered." A street musician plays a bowed instrument you can't name. The sound is raw, part cello, part storm. You feel it in your sternum. It makes the city taller, sadder, truer. The tram edges around a fountain that's seen better centuries. Moss lines its edges. A coin glints at the bottom. You imagine the wish that placed it there. Small, hopeful, private. To your left, a crumbling building boasts a new mural. A lion in monk's robes, reading a book titled How to Be Gentle. Beneath it, in gold paint, we are all learning. The tracks shimmer slightly with condensation. You notice it now. The air is thicker. A whisper of rain, maybe. Or the breath of too many stories, too many meals, too many songs rising into the night. The tram pauses beside a tiny park where a girl teaches her grandfather how to take a selfie. He smiles awkwardly at the screen. She kisses his temple anyway. You don't need a photo to remember that. Someone behind you sighs, not in sadness, but in some sort of surrender. A shared exhale. You offer yours in return. The tram creaks forward again, tracing a path that's been followed for decades. The wheels sound like lullabies from another language. You pass a shuttered shop with a sign that reads, "Closed, but dreaming." There's a doorway just beyond it, painted yellow. In front of it sits a small chair, and on that chair, a notebook, open, blank, waiting, maybe for you. You cross the invisible line between Martin Moniz and Baisha. The transition is seamless, but your body feels it, like stepping into a different key in a song you thought you knew. A cat watches you from a windowsill. Its eyes reflect your own, quiet, curious, a little dazzled. It doesn't blink, neither do you. Somewhere far off, a church bell tolls, and in the square behind you, a gust of wind sends someone's hat tumbling like a paper boat in a storm. The tram hums onward, and the night listens. The tram glides into Baixa, Lisbon's downtown grid, rebuilt in order after chaos. After the 1755 earthquake destroyed most of the city, this area rose from rubble with symmetry and stubborn optimism. The streets here are straight, the buildings dignified. Lisbon tried to organize its pain, and it mostly succeeded. You feel the difference instantly. The cobblestones are flatter, as if ironed. The buildings stand taller, their tiled facades wearing a sort of formal charm. Street lamps cast honey-colored squares on the pavement, like stage lights waiting for their cue. You pass Rua Augusta, and even this late, there are footsteps, heels click, rubber soles shuffle. The city doesn't sleep. It just naps between moments. To your left, a bakery displays custard tarts in the window. Pastel de nata. The best ones are so delicate, they tremble when you breathe on them. Behind the glass, a baker dusts cinnamon over a tray. Like he's blessing them, a dog waits patiently outside the door, leash tied to a bicycle rack. Its tail wags every time someone walks past, as if hoping they're the one it's waiting for. You feel its hope press lightly against your chest. The tram hums on, passing street performers packing up their gear. A saxophonist wipes down his instrument with the reverence of a priest closing mass. His case is open, lined with coins and a drawing of a bird flying away from a cage. And then you see it, a mural, faded but surviving, on the side of a building near the Arco da Rua Augusta. It's geometric, almost abstract, but somehow it looks like a city rebuilding itself brick by brick, thought by thought. At the bottom, in fine script, we shape what breaks us. Historians still argue whether the grid layout of Baisha was purely practical or symbolic. A city trying to impose reason over ruin. You believe it was both. You spot a boy selling postcards from a crate. He's maybe 10. He smiles with all his teeth and asks in perfect English, "Want a piece of the city?" You almost say yes, but you already have one. The tram slows as it passes Praça da Figueira. You see the equestrian statue of João I, silhouetted against the deepening sky. A pigeon is perched on his helmet, quite satisfied with its throne. The past is present and occasionally feathered. A woman waits at the tram stop with an armful of sunflowers wrapped in newspaper. One petal drifts off as she adjusts her grip. It floats past the tram window like a tiny yellow sailboat. The tram jolts slightly as it turns onto Rua da Prata. You pass a storefront that's been closed for years. Its sign reads, Esperança e Irmãos, Hope and Brothers. The window is dusty. Inside, a single chair, waiting, maybe for the brothers, maybe just for hope. You roll by a side street where a line of yellow umbrellas is strung between buildings, crisscrossing the alley like a canopy of lemon moons. Below, a couple dances to music only they can hear. She leads. You smile. You glide by an open bookshop, still lit. A girl in a knit beanie sits cross-legged on the floor, flipping through a hardback as if trying to memorize it before someone closes the door. You don't know the title, but you hope she finishes it in time. And then, quietly, unobtrusively, the tram slides past a church, just a small one, but the door is open. You glimpse candles, a kneeling man, a woman sitting 3 pews back, not praying, just breathing. The driver taps the bell. Once, you see a small bronze plaque affixed to a lamppost for those who've lost and still loved. No name, no date, just that. The tram curves gently as it approaches the edge of Bica. The grid loosens, the order softens. Lisbon is about to unravel again, and as it does, a breeze slips through the cracked tram window. It smells faintly of river, cinnamon, ink, and salt. You inhale, deeply, gratefully. The buildings shift behind you. The street narrows. The grid fades, but something lingers, like the feeling after a poem you don't quite understand, but know you needed. The tram groans as it enters Case du Sodre, the neighborhood that once smelled like salt, sweat, and sailors, and maybe still does, if you breathe deep enough. This was Lisbon's port of departure, its gateway to the great unknown, the place where explorers left and lovers waited. Now, it's part nightlife, part nostalgia, part neon-lit dream. You pass a bar with pink lights glowing like low-hung moons. A couple dances just outside, shoes off, feet on cobblestones, faces close enough to forget the world. A saxophone player leans against the wall, playing not for coins, but for the echo. There's a pause in the tram's rhythm as it creeps by an alley that dips toward the docks. You see stacked shipping containers, seagulls bickering, and a man smoking under a flickering lamp. He exhales like he's letting go of decades. Maybe he is. You reach Praça Duque da Terceira, a wide-open square that always feels too large for the night. It's the kind of place where shadows stretch further than they should, and sound scatters like coins dropped on marble. At the far end of the square, past a bus stop and a half-lit kiosk, stands a curious little monument. Not grand, not famous, just a marble bench, carved with 2 names and a date. No context, a mystery. Some say it marks the spot where 2 spies exchanged secrets during the war. Others say it's where someone proposed and was told no. You like both stories. The tram clatters past a shop selling vinyl records. The sign says, Som de ontem, sound of yesterday. You spot a poster in the window, Fado Nights. This Friday, someone's added a sticky note below. You'll find me here if I still feel brave. A few meters down, a girl with blue hair and a sketch pad is perched on a window ledge, drawing the city one curve at a time. You wonder what she sees that you've missed. And just then, the tram jolts slightly. It's passing the spot some call the nowhere track, a piece of old rail that leads to an abandoned station overgrown with weeds and rumor. No one remembers where it went. Maybe to a port, maybe to a story that stopped halfway. Historians still argue whether it was ever connected to anything at all. You crane your neck as the tram curves along Avenida 24 de Julio. On one side, trendy bars. On the other, the open breath of the Tagus River. The moon dances on its surface like someone spilled silver and forgot to clean it up. A street lamp flickers, then steadies. You pass a building that looks asleep, its shutters closed, its steps gathering leaves. But from the top floor, a light is on. A curtain stirs. Someone's home. Someone's waiting. Someone's still writing. They're part of Lisbon's lullaby. The tram bell rings. Once. You pass time out. Market. Now quiet. Its neon sign buzzes softly, like a tired joke that still lands. Someone sits on the steps, sipping from a thermos, watching the night with the patience of someone who's seen mornings bloom too many times. And there, just as you near the river, you see it, a sculpture shaped like a compass rose, faintly illuminated, worn by footsteps, carved with routes once sailed by the desperate and the brave. Beneath it, we never really leave. We just keep sailing. The tram slows, not at a stop, just in thought. You take in the quiet churn of the river, the way the lights ripple like laughter you almost forgot, the way Lisbon, even at the edge, never says goodbye, only wait a little longer. Someone behind you hums. You don't know the Ikskir tune, but it fits. The tram clinks forward again, gently, and the city listens. The tram shimmers along the waterfront now, hugging the curve where Lisbon's pulse meets the river's breath. The street narrows slightly as you round the bend toward Bica, a neighborhood tucked between hills, like a note slipped into a pocket for later discovery. You pass the base of the Elevador de Bica, that little funicular that climbs impossibly steep streets like a stair lift with dreams. Tourists take photos there by day, but now, in the hush of night, it stands quiet, tracks empty, cars sleeping, graffiti glinting under soft lamps. The tram slows. You glance to your right and see a bar carved into the wall, older than it looks. Inside, two men sip ginginha in silence. One raises his glass as you pass, not to you exactly, but to the idea of passing things. The tram, time, regret. The buildings here lean inward, like they're huddling for warmth or secrets. One balcony is lit with fairy lights and paper lanterns. A group of friends sits cross-legged, passing a guitar and a bottle of wine. They're laughing softly, nothing forced, just a language of closeness. You spot a mural between two buildings, a girl with a telescope gazing at the stars. But the stars are all paper boats. At her feet, we search for maps in things we never understand. You don't photograph it. You just remember. The tram curves again. You pass a staircase that seems to lead into sky. A cat sits at the top step, staring down like a tiny gatekeeper. Its eyes flash gold. Then, to your left, the world opens. Just for a second, a clearing in the buildings, and there it is. The Tagus again, wider, deeper, lit by dock lights and ferry trails. The water breathes, catching bits of city reflection in its quiet net. It doesn't ripple. It thinks, Someone on the tram whispers, "Look." No one responds. They just look. You continue along the curve of Rua de São Paulo, past a wall coated in old posters, torn, layered, faded like palimpsest of Lisbon's joy and protest. One says, "Revolução ainda." Revolution still. There's a doorway ahead, and just above it, in delicate wrought iron, a word, saudade. That impossible Portuguese term, part longing, part ache, part memory, curled up in the shape of absence. The tram slows again. A man steps off. He walks toward the water, hands in pockets, humming a tune with no name. The doors close behind him. The sound is softer now. The tram lighter, somehow. You pass an old cinema. The marquee reads, "Tonight only, forgotten films." The windows are dusty, but the ticket booth is lit. And then, just as the tracks straighten, you see it. A narrow alley, marked by nothing but a cracked tile and a lantern. At its base, an open journal, pages flapping in the breeze. On the top sheet, only 5 words. Someone was here, still is. Historians still argue whether Bica was a smuggling route or simply a neighborhood built too close to its own poetry. Either way, you feel its breath. The tram clinks forward, lighter now. The buildings space out. The street grows quiet. You've moved past the neighborhoods that sing and into the ones that dream. And Lisbon, tired, tender, watching, lets you go just a little deeper. The tram slides into quieter territory now, where the hum of the city begins to fade into breath. You're nearing the end of the line, and Lisbon, like a good host, is walking you to the door. This stretch is more whisper than word. The streetlights grow farther apart, the houses older and a little softer around the edges. You ride past a small flower shop, closed, but in its window sits a single daisy in a chipped jar, lit by a lone candle inside. A hand-painted sign reads, "Back soon, or later, or someday." You're entering the part of the city that feels less like a location and more like an echo. The tram wheels make an almost melodic rhythm on the track now. You lean into it. Rock, hum, click, sigh. The sound of leaving something without losing it. To your right, a narrow passageway reveals a staircase lit by hanging bulbs. Each bulb is a different color, casting a prism onto the stone steps. A man and a woman sit halfway down. They don't speak. They just hold hands and let the light paint them in silence. The tram lurches gently. You pass a building with windows still covered in blackout paint from a war that ended long ago. Below one window, written in chalk, "It's safe to dream now." You believe it. A breeze enters through a crack in the tram door. It smells faintly of rosemary, rain-dampened books, and lemon. You imagine someone cooking down the street. Maybe something simple, like soup and bread. The kind of meal that warms the soul before the stomach. As the tram rounds another bend, you spot a wall carved with hundreds of names. No explanation, just names, all hand-etched, some small, some grand, some slanted, some underlined. You wonder if anyone remembers all of them, or if remembering was never the point, just the writing down. Then, there's the old post office, abandoned but not empty. Its windows are open. letting in the night. Inside, the outline of letterboxes, one still labeled Hope. Below the box, a paper pinned with string. It reads, "Please write back." You roll slowly past a garden gate left ajar. Inside, hanging plants, wind chimes, and a radio playing a song you can't name, but somehow know. The singer's voice is thin, scratchy, like she's singing from a dream just before waking. Historians still argue whether this lower district was ever intended to be lived in, or if it just filled in over time like sediment of stories. You think it chose itself, quietly, beautifully, as all good stories do. The tram slows again as it nears a lonely corner. A cat darts across the rails, its tail high. It pauses, looks at you, then disappears into ivy. You blink. Gone. A street lamp overhead flickers, then steadies, and you see it, a mural that takes up an entire wall. A yellow tram, your tram, floating above the city, carried by a string of paper lanterns. Below it, a boy sleeps, arms wrapped around a globe. His blanket, a page torn from a Lisbon map, scribbled on it, "Everything you are is already home." You close your eyes for a moment. The tram glides, the street breathes, and Lisbon, this last winding edge of her, leans in and whispers, "Stay a little longer." The tram moves slower now, not from fatigue, but reverence. This close to the end, even the steel softens. The rails murmur rather than sing. The buildings on either side grow shorter, older, more certain of their place in the city's breath. You're nearing the quiet edge of Lisbon, where time doesn't vanish. It lingers. To your right, a stairway curls up into shadow. At its base, a lantern with a melted candle inside, still glowing. Tied to the railing is a note. "We waited. We still are." The tram rolls past a garden wall, overtaken by ivy, except for a single clear square, where someone's painted a bright yellow heart. Above it, written with care, "Forgiveness lives here." You exhale without realizing it. The air is different now, thicker with salt, lighter with distance. Then comes Rua da Esperança, Street of Hope, a soft name for a street that winds gently, its cobblestones damp with memory. A woman sweeps her doorstep in slow, circular motions, as if polishing the past. She looks up, smiles. You don't know her, but her smile is the kind people reserve for those they already love. The tram bell rings once. The driver doesn't tap it. It rings on its own, almost shy. You see a mural, one of the last. Just a moon, full and low, with a ladder stretching up toward it. At the bottom, a child looks up, holding a paper star. Beneath it, "If you're still dreaming, you're not lost." Historians still argue whether this area once held a convent or whether that was merely a name passed down in habit. What's certain is that it still feels sacred, even without steeples. To your left, an old man waters his plants with a teacup. He moves slowly, humming something that might be a lullaby or an anthem. You feel both. The tram glides on. You pass a cafe with a single light on. Inside, someone is writing in a notebook. She's surrounded by empty chairs, and yet she does not seem alone. Next door, a shop front is shuttered. but in chalk across the metal, "Come back when you're ready. We never left." A couple walks hand in hand, neither speaking. A dog trots behind them. A light flicks on in a window above, and another. The city breathes. And then, without warning, the tram slows to a near stop. You're not at a station. There's no sign, but in front of you is a single bench, empty, facing the water. It's where the tracks seem to end, but they don't. They curve again, out of sight. A girl sits at the far end of the tram, feet tucked under her. She looks out the window and says quietly, "This is my favorite part, and you understand, because at this moment, Lisbon doesn't feel like a city. It feels like a breath you've been holding, finally let go. You look down at your reflection in the tram's window, not sharp, not clear, but there, softened, real, as you round one last curve. You see a wall, blank except for a painted door. No handle, no hinges, just a door. And next to it, in silver paint, you've always had the key. The tram sighs, the wheels hush, the light dims, and Lisbon, timeless, tender, lets you through. The tram eases into its final stretch, coasting like a lullaby in slow motion. The streets are hushed now. Even the city's echoes seem to tread lighter. The final curve hugs a grove of trees, tall, black silhouettes against a sky full of midnight velvet. Your breath fogs the window, and you trace a finger through it without thinking. Just a line, just a moment, already gone. You pass a cafe with every chair turned upside down, closed, but in the corner, a man is sweeping. He hums, one hand on the broom, one eye on the window. When he catches your gaze, he smiles, not big, not wide, just enough to say, "I see you too." The tram crosses a small bridge, the kind that creaks with honesty. Below, a stream reflects the stars, even the ones the city lights try to swallow. A paper lantern floats down the water, flickering like it's carrying a secret. To your left now, another mural, a single yellow tram, parked at the edge of a hill, door open. In the distance, just brush strokes, faint. Someone walks away into fog. Below it, a line. Some departures are just softer arrivals. You lean back. There's a bench. At the next corner, someone sits on it. Old woman, wool coat, plastic shopping bag. She doesn't look up. She just listens to the tram pass, like it's a memory brushing her shoulder. You roll slowly past a wrought iron gate. Beyond it, vines, a half-buried bicycle, a forgotten shoe. Childhood lives here. Maybe still does. Then, a window with sheer curtains. Candlelight inside. Two shadows cross. Hands meet. Lips brush. The curtain sways, and the moment seals itself. You're almost there. One last climb, one last sigh of track. And just before the tram enters the quiet depot, a final mural. It's simple. A child asleep in a tram seat, a stuffed panda in their lap. The city beyond them swirls into stars. Words above the window say, "If you've made it this far, you were meant to." The tram stops, not sharply, gently, like settling into a memory. The doors open. You don't step off. Not yet. You just sit, eyes closed, heart full, letting the ride linger And then you exhale. The tram is still now, but your mind continues gliding gently, like a ripple after the stone has long disappeared beneath the surface. You're safe here, in this soft space between where you were and where you're going. The clink of the wheels is gone. The city's breath is slower now. The lights have dimmed to a glow, and outside your window, Lisbon sleeps. You can still see her streets behind your eyelids, tiled and tangled, glowing and quiet. You can still smell the roasted chestnuts and river wind, feel the slow turns and subtle climbs, hear the fado notes trailing through alleys and laughter bouncing from balconies. Every stop was a whisper, every turn a secret, and now all that's left is stillness. Let it wrap around you like a blanket warmed by stories. You're not alone on this tram. You never were. Around you are memories, glances, lanterns, hands held and hands letting go. Around you is Lisbon, resting in the cradle of her hills, her rooftops stitched in gold. Let your breath slow. Let your fingers unfurl. There's no more to chase. The ride is the arrival. So sleep now. Let the quiet carry you. Let the journey dream for you. And if you wake, remembering nothing but a soft click and a yellow tram in the dark, that will be enough.